Well, hello. Here we are again, and welcome to Shay and our guest Jade, and to our audience. I'm so excited always to do these weekly get-togethers because we come up with some amazing things. And today, the topic that we're going to be talking about is the way that we are going to school our younglings in the new earth in the years to come. And this comes from the fact that so many parents have pulled their children out of the systems for one reason or another. And today we've got this wonderful guest, Jade Weatherill, who is from the Sunshine Coast in Australia. And she's an author of the Rainbow series of children's books, which I'll ask her a little bit about. But what interested me most in our connection was that she was talking about writing a New Earth school program. And although she's focusing at the moment on the more on the homeschooling, I certainly would like to explore more about how we can transition that into the broader sense of, all over the world. We know that the old systems are crumbling and we are reinventing new systems, and that is in finance and in health and definitely in schooling of people. So welcome, Jade. Really excited to have you on board. And of course, Shay. And we have apologies from Sovereign because he was unable to join us today, but I'm sure he'll be very interested in this session indeed. So maybe, Jade, you could tell us a little bit about how you came to go down this path to recognize, because I believe you do not actually have children, so it's wonderful to see someone to look at the system and go, this is not serving our younglings, and I'm fascinated with what you are about. So would you like to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got where you're going?
Hello. Yeah, so in 2016, I was guided to write my first children's book, Rainbow Tree. I was never really a writer. I was a visual artist and did graphic design and whatnot. And so since I've been writing a few more, and I'm on to my third book, Mermaid Returns to the Ocean. So the book's based on, like, all the characters are animals and helps children connect to the earth. And Rainbow Tree has a colour meditation. And so while I'm writing those books, I went back to uni in 2019 and thought I'll be a teacher, because I had a calling to work with children and teach. And I thought I'll go and teach art in a mainstream school. And then it turns out last July we went into further lockdowns, and then I'd done a year of uni then, and I had to pull out with all the lockdowns because I couldn't study online. I'd rather go into the classroom, and then the mandates came out. So I only worked for 2 months in early education, and I had to stop working because of the mandates. And suddenly there was all these meetings. So all these teachers and parents were getting together and saying, how are we going to move forward? Because all these teachers had to leave work, and then parents couldn't go to schools with the mandates, so they started homeschooling. So there's just been a big mass movement of people enrolling to homeschool, which is great to see. And I guess we know that the old systems don't really work. They're all about creating robots and, just seeing what children can get the highest marks and get them to uni. So everyone knows that the systems need to change. And so I think it's really exciting right now that we've been pushed out of these jobs and we have to create something new. So, I guess what's happening is, a lot of parents are enrolling their children to homeschool, and then a lot of teachers are choosing to do tutoring. So I'm looking at setting up a tutor group where homeschool children will come to me, and we'll do things like yoga and meditation, and I'll use all my books, and we'll do nature art. And if the parents want me to, tutor them through maths and English so that they can still tick the homeschool boxes, we can do that. So we'll really work with the parents in what they want their children to learn. So like one parent said that their child just doesn't want to learn maths off the parents. They want an outsider. So helping parents that way with the tutoring. And a lot of children are also missing the social interaction of school. So there's just a big call out for group work. So yeah, I'm looking at finding a space and keeping it simple because, it can be big to try and build a whole new school and create a big thing. I mean, we just don't have the money for that. So it's just looking at who can offer a backyard or rent a community space and just starting small and just working within the means with what we've got for now. Yeah. And it's all, self-employment and just starting really small and simple.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So what I've written, so it's more a paradigm that I've written. I haven't written curriculum and programs. That's not really what this is about. This is really about working out how to bring up children more consciously so that in the future we can save the planet, because we can't keep going the way we are. We can't just keep making slaves. So, and the creativity is really important. In the past, people think that art is so that you become an artist and get your art into a gallery. That's not what art is about. Art is about creating open minds so children can think for themselves, problem solve in life, and be creative and intuitive. And that to me is what art is about. So just raising children that can really think for themselves and nurture their gifts and and work out what they want to do, that isn't just being robots and going to uni, or working out what they're really good at and what they're here to do on the planet. And a lot of psychology is behind it. So how we speak to the children and the languages that we use, and just raising them really consciously so that we can turn the planet around. Yeah. That's about it.
Thank you. That's really great. I love the concept that you speak about, that it is about bringing out of the child that seed. We've been talking a lot about the seed and how good it is that everyone comes with this innate seed of creativity within them, and it's lost in the system so often, and that is because there are too many children to a teacher. There is a curriculum that is somebody else's intentions that need to be followed, and there just never is enough time, and it makes it for a fairly stressful situation for the teachers, but also unfulfilling for many of the students. So yes, for you to talk about bringing it back to nature, and I know that it's absolutely Shay's love as well.
Yet another thing is, you're talking about too many students to a teacher. In July last year, I went up to Northern Territory to try work in an early education centre, and there was 11 children to me. Now, I had boys up the back, fighting each other, and then someone wanted to go to the toilet and you had to attend the toilet with them. And then you're trying to teach a class. You can't do that on your own. Impossible. So I'd love to go back to, children till they're 6 are with one-on-one with their mum or a grandparent or somebody, not mass, not this mass thing, because it was awful. I lasted 4 days. I couldn't do it. And that's when I left there, I had a little holiday in Cairns, and that's when I started getting the guidance to write the New Earth School. I was told start, offering parent workshops and writing these, even teaching children more spiritual things. So I did a pranic healing course while I was in Cairns, and I thought, why not teach a pranic healing in school? So they do a little meditation at the start of the day, and they can do exercises, everything they learn that day, the information's held, and do some yoga. So starting the day right, and not these early education centres. We're sending the parents off to work and having too many children it just doesn't work. So, and then, smaller groups when they're older. So, 12 to 15 in a homeschool group rather than 20 to 30 children. Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear, Jade. I really love your enthusiasm for going down this path, and just want to acknowledge Yvonne for bringing this conversation together. I know that Jade and I were in a relatively similar location, which is fantastic. And what I'm hearing in your inspired action around, putting into place some of the missing links, I would suggest, based on our past record and my upbringing in the mainstream system and cycle, growing up, going to a Catholic primary school and then a larger state high school up in far north Queensland, I really began to feel and experience and come to find that there was something not quite, incoherence. There was something missing. There was more to life. Even though I was heavily involved in sports, I was very athletic, and I had a sense of community with all of the other athletes. I still felt, in the relationships, primarily with the teachers and other students, and the confinements of the square box that we were stuck in, didn't allow a full expression of what's really possible. And I was fortunate that I had a bit of balance because I was also a creative person, and I went off to university to do a Bachelor of Fine Arts in the United States. But at the same time, it seemed that there was a lot more that I learned outside of those institutional boxes, just out of curiosity and passion. And I went down on different discoveries of researching and diving deeper into other subjects around, human physiology, around human psychology, around human spirituality. And my question to you, what I'm curious in connecting this missing link for people, particularly for those who also find themselves stuck, let's say, in the confinements of this box, in the limitations of the current or the old paradigm. Because whether we like it or not, this mainstream paradigm has been around for a long time, and it still grips the majority of our culture. And for us to have the courage and the bravery, as you have done, to step outside of that and embark on a journey that is creating a new paradigm, a way of upbringing and raising and educating and connecting with others and in their environment and younglings, to really close the gap and connect the missing link pieces. How do we as a collective really integrate that shift from one paradigm to the next? And what are the key pieces that we need to do to enable children in their creative development, to help them build resilience and the wisdom to be able to self-regulate? I love how you touched on it already a little bit with the pranic healing and bringing in meditation. What are the key elements that are going to support our children to build resilience in themselves, rather than depending on an external outside force, but the inner guidance that they can build the wisdom from within themselves to be able to self-regulate and be able to have a creative life moving beyond their primary educational years? I'm really curious to hear your perspective on that.
Oh, I'm muted. There we go. So I guess that comes down to parents and teachers and everyone working with children to really, not tell children what to do so much and they're naughty and punishment. Rather, let them explore, through creativity and different activities, and let them learn from their own mistakes, and obviously just doing it in a safe way. So you've got you provide the safe space, and then they explore from there. And that's where creativity, teaches them those skills to think for themselves. So instead of sitting them down at the desk and telling them how things are, ask them what their view is and what they think, and get them to explore the answers for themselves. Because the current system's all, like I remember at school, and it was like, can you do this? It's either yes or no, and then you get classed into the top grade or low grade. And instead of being shown what to do or being taught, it was you were judged in grade 1 on what you're going to be when you're older. And it shouldn't be like that. I was at school to learn, not to already be good. And I didn't really learn till in higher education. I wasn't interested. I was the same. I just wanted to do art and sport when I was young. And it wasn't till I was older that I was interested in going to TAFE and uni and really learning, business or community services, different things. I keep studying because I've got an interest for it as an adult, because I want to learn it. I wasn't interested as a child to learn. I was just learning and growing and exploring the world. So maybe it's too young to ask children what they want to do when they're older, and why do they have to know so young? Why can't they just enjoy the world and let it happen when it happens?
I think that's really powerful, Jade, because it's been a long time since I went to school. And probably, although a different system, and I hate it. I can honestly, there is nothing in life that I hate. It's not a word I use, but I can honestly say that school was not my favorite place. However, part of that was because as a child, I traveled a lot of times and we kept changing schools. But it wasn't that. I felt that they weren't teaching me anything that I really wanted to know. I remember that because of the war that I was born into, I didn't start school until I was 6, I think. And by then I had already accumulated so much life understanding, as I know now, that I just skipped through things so fast that I did my whole primary school in 3 years because they kept pushing me up. And then, of course, I'm being in a Dutch educational system. There was an age that that you had to be to go into the next level of education. So I finished my my schooling. I can't remember, but I had to wait 2 years before I was allowed into the next level of education, which was high school. And in those 2 years, I kind of had to keep going around in circles, repeating stuff, and I just got more and more bored. And so I don't have a great deal of love for that system, because at no time did I really learn anything that I have used since I left school in my life, other than, I'm very good at math, so my timetables have always been very powerfully important. But other than that, I can honestly not say that there was anything that I learned that I used once I left school. And I just felt that the school of life was where I needed to learn. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about, not telling or asking children what do they want to be, it's such a fruitless thing. Absolutely fruitless. I remember when I was about 11, my mother took me to the principal of the school I was at the time in Indonesia, and I had this passionate need to heal people because my mum was sick so often. But actually what I really wanted at that time, I wanted to be a pediatrician, I thought. And so she took me to the principal to ask what level of education that I would need for that. And he sat back and laughed and said, "Don't be ridiculous. You just look at her. By the time she finishes high school, she'll be whatever it was, 18 or something. Then 5 years of studying in medical school. No, she'll be too old. By then, she'll be married with 5 children." And that was the attitude at the time. So not really a place where you go to get guidance and counseling, to be able to work out what your path is. And what I've recognized as a mother and a grandmother is that all we have to do is observe children, and they will show you. They will show you in what they are drawn to, what they pick up, what they start to play with, and that will show you where their seed lies, where their inner being is asking to be an expression of itself. And then when we help them to skill up on that, because these days, if you want someone mathematical for whatever reason, then you get somebody who loves that. And it's so important that we go to the experts that have a love for that particular topic. You don't have to be an expert in everything. I mean, what a waste of time.
Yeah.
We have so many children and now adults who have never, ever felt that they could find this self-expression within themselves. But I just want to take it a little bit on a slight different tangent, and that is, I know in an ideal world, children need to have one-on-one until they're 6, but we don't live in an ideal world. And particularly nowadays, I look at the homeschooling that is being forced upon so many people, and yet the way the world still is, parents seem to need to both work. So this homeschooling is putting a lot of pressure on a lot of families. And so they're leaving their children at school because they have no other option. So we need to really, for me, when I look at it, it's got to have a bigger picture. Not just for the children, but for the family unit and how that is all going to come together. And then I guess that takes us to the old ways of living in communities, and which of course brings it too close to my heart, of New Earth communities where everyone supports and cares for one another. So whoever, which one of you two wants to take that on, let's go.
Well, yeah, I think you're going into the financial department there. So, as we're recreating the new world, my focus is on education. I'm trusting and hoping that someone else is going to, write the new financial structures and systems, and they're going to come in, because at the moment it's all out of balance. For example, I'm single, and I don't have the luxury of a second income to go and to live a luxurious life. So this whole thing that two people have to be working to have a house and a family is just not right. And I woke up to that when I was 23, because I was working and I thought, how am I ever going to stop and have children? I'm not sending them to a daycare centre. So I woke up to that reality that the financial structures are obsolete. They need changing. So, and yeah, in my New Earth School paradigm, I've written that, say, if you're living in a community, it'll be the teacher's role to take the children and, we're in the garden growing the food and attending to things in the community. Well, if one of the parents is good at doing the maths and the finances for the community, they're doing that. And people, doing their carpentry, so people are doing their skill, and it will be a person's role in the community to take care of the children. And coming back to, like these homeschool groups that are popping up in each area. So you're not traveling, because at the moment people are driving their kids an hour to school just so they can go to the best school, or, coming back to just localizing it. So you just, so say if there is in a community, you've got children of all different ages, 7 to 12 or whatever, you can work with them all. It's not classrooms of ages. So you're working within whatever's happening within the community in your local area as well. So that's where the creativity comes in with the homeschooling.
That's fantastic, Jade. I'd be really curious to hear more from you, particularly on the piece of this new program that you're developing for the younglings, what that entails, what it looks like, how do people get involved? I'm really interested to hear this program that you're initiating and birthing into the world.
So at this stage, yeah, I've just been really writing about more so getting away from the education that's there at the moment, and yeah, just like I saying about in community where yeah, like the teacher will be working with all the children that are in that community on the land, rather than going to a school that's, you know, miles away, and changing, really coming away from the competition and the separation that schools are creating robots. So it's really getting away from that and coming back to nurturing the children to be more creative. And so say, for example, with sport, instead of, I mean, I never liked competition sports. I always did yoga and loved running and swimming, but I didn't like the competition side of things. So why not do sport that's more involving everyone, regardless of how good they are? They're doing it for the fitness and because they're enjoying it, not because they're the best. Because I find as soon as you do competition, if you're not the best, then they just drop out and don't want to do it. So why not do a running race where you're beating your time yesterday, not beating the other children, or you're improving yourself rather than, because yeah, that competition is what then they take into adulthood, and they're all competing for the bigger house and more money, and then they're all gone to the mines to get more money from each other, and then putting their kids into early childhood centres instead of being with their children. And it's just created so much separation and competition. So getting away from that and coming back to more just away from the materialism, really, and the robotic structures of schools, and coming back to more that we're all here and we all need to survive. There is enough for us all, so we don't need to compete. So allowing the children to realise that you know, we've all got a place in this world. You don't have to be the best on the best income to make a living. We all have a right as a human to be here and survive, and there is enough for us all.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's so true. So the whole system needs to be reinvented, and that's all the systems are being reinvented. And I know down here in Melbourne and on the peninsula, there's a very similar group who are doing the same. And what I loved about what you're talking about, that you know, it needs to be, children need each other's company, so therefore having group work is important. And I think that a lot of people who have not been involved with homeschooling have a sense that it, you know, you're always locked up in your house with your child, but that's definitely not the case, because you know, it's a huge group, it's a community of homeschool parents who come together and who share things together, as we do in these communities. It's really important to realize that community schooling, it'll be, you know, and this is not commune living, this is community living. It's a very different thing. And if you, and that doesn't mean there won't be communities that have, you know, residential situations, but it is coming together and sharing your gifts and sharing your time. And that is going to lift a lot of stress from people, because, as you know, Jade, you're talking about this need for two parents to work. That was never meant to be. It was never the case in you know, many years ago. It is only because of the carrot that's been dangling in front of us through materialism and commercialism that unless you have this or that, you aren't successful. And of course, it is completely changing the view of what success is. And success doesn't have to be attached to a bank account or to a status. Success is living in joy. Success is living aligned with nature. And a lot of what you're talking about is to bring children back to the sensation of being in the nature of themselves, but in natural community, natural environments where they are part of growing their own food. I love that, what you talked about. And certainly when we create the sanctuary down here. That's a very large part of it, where we will bring children in and get them to work in the gardens and helping to grow food. And that is just so powerful, because today, a lot of children have no idea where their food comes from. And so becoming more part of the natural flow of life is what our new schooling systems, I'm hoping, will be about. And I really love that you have that concept in mind. And Shay, I know that you feel exactly the same, because you have spoken about it many times, and also Sovereign, that we need to look at how the younglings are now going to move forward into this new earth concept that we're all creating together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Yvonne, and thanks for joining us, Jade. This is a really great conversation, and one I feel we could really start to normalize more frequently and regularly. And what I noticed is the conversation start point for these movements, creating new ways of educating, and what's also even more relevant is taking the action, which I feel inspired by what you're doing, Jade, by writing the books, bringing the people together, initiating the coursework, and really starting that journey. So what I'm going to do is just leave a link for Jade's work on Facebook. So if you guys are interested to join her, learn more about what Jade is doing here on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, it's a phenomenal way to get in contact with her. Simply go to her Facebook channel, hit her up, message her, reach out to her for her Facebook. And also, we've got Basha tuning in from New Zealand. She's saying she's co-creating the new earth and saying high vibe way of living with parallel systems. And that's becoming a common thread in this movement, is these parallel systems that are operating side by side. People who are choosing to unplug from one paradigm of living and plug back into a natural way, a more coherent way, a more harmonious way that is in alignment with community living, it's in alignment with environmental living, it's in alignment with our highest values, moving forward, that elevates the development of all elements of the human being. Probably one of the biggest areas I felt was missing in my upbringing in the mainstream system was this holistic approach to education, which Jade has been speaking to and Yvonne has been speaking to often, and bringing it in from an early age. Because what I've noticed with my nephew and my niece is that younglings are extremely intelligent, and they have so much wisdom, and the more that we support their journey to being their most expressive self, the more potential that they step into. It's all just waiting for them to have the opportunity to feel the confidence to be able to walk the life that they really desire for them. So Jade, I'd love to hear you before we go and before we wrap it up, a little bit more on how people can connect with you, what your vision, what your beautiful vision would be for a new earth school, if that was to come about, and how people can plug into what you're creating. You just need to unmute yourself. And
okay,
then we
sorry, I'll go again.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, so if you connect with me on the New Earth School page or Rainbow Tree, my children's book, and I'm happy to chat to anyone. Yeah, so for the last 6 months, I've been going to so many meetings with parents and teachers, just trying to work out, how to navigate this new way of education. So it's really good that everyone comes together like that. So I'm looking at renting a space and just starting like a day a week where children come in so they can get dropped off, have the social interaction. I'm going to start with a group of 7 to 12-year-olds to start with, and see where it goes from there. And I'm really just doing it as I go. I guess the message was just to get in and start, not wait until we've got, a big school structure and everything in place. Just start with whatever you've got, whether it's, parents are offering a back veranda or a piece of lawn in their yard, and just saying, everyone meet here, and then finding teachers and tutors to come in. And in terms of parents still working, I see a lot of parents have had to work from home since all the COVID stuff. So they're doing homeschooling and working from home at once. So it would suit them to drop their children off for a day or two tutoring. So we're still navigating the rules around that, fitting in with the government legislations. Like when you're tutoring, you can only do 50% out of the home. The other 50% has to be done with the parents and things like this. So we're trying to work with all the laws and the rules and fit within what's going on currently, and then just making little changes. So really starting with homeschooling is the first step, enrolling for the homeschooling. And then, the children are learning so much. Parents are wondering, what do I do with them all day? Well, you can spend an hour making lunch and then, teach them laundry and cleaning the house, and then getting in the garden. Like, you can fill up the day so much at home. So many things that they can learn at home. It's not just sitting down and doing mainstream curriculum all day. And then parents are saying that they're fitting in a whole week of work, schoolwork, within half a day of the week. So, and then the rest, it's all doing other things at home. So parents are really finding it great in that way, that it's saving a lot of time. The children can get through work a lot quicker at home. And then taking them camping on the weekends, you teach them to put up a tent and camp and be in nature. There's just so much that they're learning at home that I think it's it's just great to see so many people jumping in and really making a change. I'm surprised how quick and everyone is, doing this, making this change. I thought, it might take me forever to write this new Earth School and get things going, but it's happening quite quickly. And I guess the message is really just to start with what you've got. Just get in and do it. Just pull your kids out of school and just start, and then we're all just co-creating as we go. So I'm still writing more as things come through. I just keep writing more and more, and it's just in a creation.
What I really love about Jade, and one of the reasons I invited her on, is because we've been talking a lot about don't wait. Start. Do what you can do now. And that is very much why we've just created this hub, down here, the Centre of Creativity, which is the seed for something bigger later. And so, what you're talking about, Jade, is really wonderful, because it gives you that the inspiration for other people also. You don't have to wait. And what I loved around the world, I certainly see it around Australia, that there are groups like you that are doing this, and they're realizing that children, in fact, are learning much faster when they're in this kind of natural environment. I know from, for instance, my daughter who lives in Malaysia, their schools were closed for almost 2 years, and homeschooling was definitely not something she was ever going to have to do. Now, there was not an opportunity, a large opportunity for the bigger groups, because it's a totally different way of life. But what I noticed was that they learned so much because they were doing interesting things, like watching, the life cycle of insects in the garden. They had a leaf insect as a pet, and they just watched how this was processing. They learned science projects, and they did so much things at home that in free time with joy and without having to be measured. It's this measuring up against somebody, and which is such an incredible dent in the self-esteem of anyone, particularly our children. And there was statistics taken some time ago that children that enter school, they have about 85% of self-esteem, right? They're fine. We're born with 100%, but by the time we go to school, some of that has diminished by the many no's and don't do this and don't do that. But they go to school at about 85%. By the time that they come out of primary school, I believe, if I remember well, the number was something like 50%. By the time they come out of high school, it is 15% of self-esteem. And that to me was absolutely heartbreaking, because I'm now at the other end where I work with adults, and one of the biggest issues is their lack of confidence, their lack of self-esteem, their lack of knowing who they are, their lack of knowing what their purpose is, their lack of having any confidence in their passions, and that they have no idea or remembrance of what they were good at or what they're meant to be doing here beyond making a quid. And this is what we're dismantling, and that is so important to see. So to have this ability where children can start to develop naturally is where we need to go with schooling, as far as I can see. And this is what's so exciting when I come across people like Jade, who says, well, let's not wait, and let's just, it doesn't matter. We just need a space. And just on that, by the way, Jade, we asked on Facebook or whatever you are, social media, hey, we need a space for, and we asked the universe for a space to begin the seed of our sanctuary, and it just turned up. So just keep asking and it'll be there for you, because I know that whatever you're doing is soul guided. It is where we are going next with this wonderful schooling system for our younglings, as I speak. And as a grandmother, and it is the most wonderful thing to view. And I just want to say something else, because it's something that Shay mentioned, and then he said that he learned more outside of the system than he ever learned inside of it. And it reminded me of when I was a child, and as I said, I was not a fan of my schooling, and I would used to try and get out of going to school. And my mum was fairly gullible, darling that she was. And I'd ask her for a hot drink, and then I'd stick the thermometer in it, and she fell for it every time. And then I'd say, I'm so sick, Mummy, I need to stay home. So I made a promise to myself that when I had children, they would never need to do that. And so many times my children would say, I don't want to go to school today. And I'd go, oh, fantastic. Let's go and do something exciting outside. And I'd drag them off to have the most amazing experiences. And what is so good about that is that now they're all parents, and I see them do exactly the same thing for their children. And that shows how much value they put on that. And that is really what you're now putting into this newer school, that ability for children to experience life out there and to treasure that. I spent yesterday with my 2.5-year-old granddaughter in the rhododendron gardens up here, and it was magical. And just to watch this amazing curiosity in the child is such a joy. And that's a curiosity that I've never, ever stilled. I've never allowed it to be stilled. And there's so much to learn every day. And that is what has been, stunted in so many children by having to measure up, by having to have marks that are that level. And I'm just so delighted that there are people like you, Jade, that are, going out there and taking this whole system and shaking it up and bringing it home to what is really natural for children to learn. So thank you for that.
Oh, there you go. I'm unmuted. Yeah, I have quite a similar experience to both of you. That I learned a lot on a Saturday and a Sunday at home, or going to Girl Guides and hanging out with family more than in the 5 days I went to school. So that's where I learned all my life skills, helping my parents renovate houses and going camping. And my grandma taught me art. So, I definitely learned more at home. And I wasn't a homeschooler. I went to school all week.
Yeah. So Shay, do you want to take us out?
What I'm hearing. Yeah, well, what I'm hearing from each of our experience in the mainstream system is that it wasn't fully honoring, fully serving, and really enabling younglings to come into themselves. And that's not at the discredit of all of the teachers, because I know from my experience that my teachers were doing the best that they could. They were doing a phenomenal job. But as Jade explained at the very beginning of this conversation, for one teacher to manage 30 plus students all at once can be a really tiresome job 5 days a week, when maybe that's, if they're not totally passionate about it and they're not vital in their own energy, and that they're going through their own journey of their life, it can become very challenging. And so this new model that Jade's presenting around the way that we operate and function in a community to be able to serve, not just the younglings, but also to serve our fellow family and friends and community in a way that really helps to nurture, just really nurturing ongoingly, because it's not like education happens from 9 till 3 o'clock when the students in the classroom. Life happens, and our greatest university, as Yvonne had mentioned, is life. I know going on journeys across the world and traveling to new places and meeting new people, and having huge self-realization experiences and moments of education from having to step up and be responsible, which I love exploring the words where responsibility just comes in our ability to respond to our environment. So our ability to make conscious decisions that's going to be in support and in compassion of those who are around us, and instilling these fundamental principles into the hearts and into the minds of younglings that enables them to come into their own self-expression is just a wonderful way just to allow humans to essentially grow on this evolutionary path that we're on, and just to have fun with it, because like kids are the greatest reminders of joy and fun and excitement. And it's like, why is it that when they go to high school, they go to school, and you come home and kids are miserable? Like, I know sometimes I'd come home and I'd be like, my energy would be depleted. And it's like kids are naturally, just when they're in their full expression, they're so joyful and fun. And so just creating the environment to foster that level of passion and joy and fun. It's like, let's enjoy the life and let's have fun creating all the things. And that's what I love about what Yvonne is really an advocate for, and Jade, to hear your story and your mission. So big thanks for all you guys for joining us. I just want to make one mention as well. There's a fantastic series on Earth Heroes TV called We the People, which has some of the well-known scientists and doctors, and real-life human beings who also have chosen to look at alternative ways of raising younglings. It's a great series because they explore homeschooling, unschooling, and deschooling programs that really help people grow. So it's available there. I highly recommend to have a listen, have a watch, and it just adds new perspectives on ways that others have successfully unplugged and replugged back into systems and schools and education in a way that is conducive to allowing younglings to come into themselves. So thanks so much, ladies, for your time. Jade, did you have anything else you would love to share before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's everything. Yeah, I think it's great though seeing so many people, I guess, that are out there changing the education systems. You know, it's not like it's just left to one person to do and create. You know, everyone is co-creating, the parents and the teachers and everybody. So it's really good to see, and it's really exciting, and it is fun to be a part of and fun to create. So yeah, it's pretty exciting what we're doing, creating is, you know, a lot of people that have been in the system teaching for ages they're waiting for the government to change something, or, you know, we've got to vote someone else in to tell us what to do. I really just think it's important to remember that we've got to get away from having the government to tell us what to do, because that's what schools teach us, to ask the teacher, ask our parents, ask the government what to do. We've really got to come back to our own intuitions, and it's about us co-creating the new world. It's not waiting for the government to change it and tell us what to do. So we've really got to everything that we do right now is going to impact the bigger world, and our chance to save humanity. So it's really up to everybody to get out there and be the change that they want to be, and take responsibility and stop expecting the government to do it.
Wow, that's just, you know, my words exactly. Be the change that you want to see, and that's what it's really all about. And of course, we do want people who are watching to, you know, something I always forget, but please share, and I just love. And Earth Hero TV, I really want to give Shay, I want to give you a plug, because it's a platform that has just so much wisdom and so many documentaries and wonderful people that are not on the mainstream for you to learn from and share with. So yes, and please share these series as we continue on to look for people who are already putting this in place, who are not waiting. And as Jade says, let's stop looking for those people who actually have caused the problem, because they only know one way, and that is to continue to create more problems. And it always comes from within. We come knowing what is that highest good for ourselves. And when we return to that and we really become aligned with our soul plan for being here, then life flows. And life is the best educator. I know that to be true. And I've been living here doing it for a long time. And every day is teaching me something new. So thank you so much. It's been a joy. Jade, lovely. Well, I wish you all the fortune in the world, and I'm sure someone's watching who's got a space for you right now. And there are teachers who are watching who want to be part of what you're doing up there in the Sunshine Coast. And wherever you are watching this, let's just make it happen, because we are the people that we've been waiting for, and we are the way showers. Yep. So thank you once again. It's been a joy. And thank you, as always, Shay, to be holding the fort for us.
Thank you both for having me.
Thanks, ladies. Appreciate it. Appreciate you.
So until next week, bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.